Hi, this is Shawn Parker with The Shawn Parker Show. Welcome. We're glad to have you with us. Our guest today is one of the future leaders of conservatism, not just in Ohio, not just in the United States. I think he's going to be a leader in the world. I'm not sure how that really plays out. The world's a big place. Gabe Guidarini. Gabe is the local person, local field operative for Turning Point Action, and also is the president of the Ohio College Republicans.
Correct.
So those are both some pretty big titles for a young guy. Which one of those takes more of your time? And tell us a little bit about each, just so folks can get a little bit of understanding of how busy you are and what you're up to.
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, my name is Gabe Guidarini. I am the Turning Point Action field representative for Ohio. I share the state with 3 other field representatives, and we all do great work around the state to help bolster grassroots conservatism. I'll get to that in a second, but I want to talk first about the Ohio College Republican Federation and what it does. Basically, we've been around for over 50 years. We have been the core collegiate arm of the GOP in the state of Ohio. And our focus is to be that link between the Ohio GOP, its affiliate organizations, and the young people on campuses. We want to connect them, and our purpose is to be that voice on campuses to not only bring in more people to the conservative and Republican cause, but also bring people to a better understanding of the candidates in their local area, helping get young people involved with campaigns, with the local party, with organizations that stand with the party and what it believes. Turning Point Action does something similar. The College Republicans actually have a working relationship with the Turning Point Action group. But Turning Point Action is just broadly with the age demographics from old through young, helping get people involved with conservative causes and helping make sure that people are getting out and voting in particular. This is something that young people have been struggling with for a while. Obviously, young people turn out to vote at lower rates than the Republican Party, than older folks in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And especially within the Republican Party, that's a major issue.
Let's break that down just a little bit. In terms of younger people, younger conservatives, younger Republicans, right? That's what we're talking about. Not being as engaged. Why is that, do you think, considering all of the economic, environmental, and other factors that are facing young people today?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it is because young people don't see themselves being able to make an impact in the process. We see polling right now shows that young people in America today are more conservative than at any other point in recorded history, since at least when H.W. Bush was president. And that was way before my time. And
I was thinking of going back to maybe Lexington and Concord, but okay, we'll go there.
But probably something like that.
Right.
And that's a major issue that we're not getting those folks out at the levels that older folks are coming out to vote. Because what that shows is that even though young people are more conservative now than they ever have been, they're still not feeling as though they can make an impact, as though they can actually get into the process and start making things happen on the ground level. And that's exactly what we're trying to solve with the Ohio College Republican Federation. We're trying to make sure that these young people believe and know that they have a means to engage in the process, to make an impact. Young people think that scrolling through Twitter and posting is making an impact. And in some ways it is, now more than ever.
It's influence.
But more than that, getting involved at the local level, at the municipal level, at their state level, which may not be as flashy as White House or Capitol Hill, but it actually in many ways is more important. And that's something that we try to communicate to people all the time, that no matter who's in the White House, whether it's Donald Trump or someone else or a Democrat, what happens at your local municipal level at City Hall, what happens at your state capitol building, at the State House, what happens at your county board, those things all impact your local community more than anything else in this country. And when you're trying to move into a home, have kids, raise children, pay taxes, pay your mortgage or rent, those things will impact your life. And we're trying to make sure that young people, especially conservative young people, know how to get active in that system to advocate for their interests, because now more than ever, young people are concerned about being able to buy homes and raise kids.
Let me ask you this question, because I consistently see this, and it's also a problem that the Democrats are having, is getting their young people engaged. Is there a sense of hopelessness out there with people as it relates to where you are in life, what America has to offer you? Or is there hopefulness that we just don't know how to get tapped into?
Absolutely. I think there is a sense of hopelessness among young people, but I think there's also a sense of optimism that's hidden in there.
Okay.
Young people are increasingly feeling as though what they're going to do isn't going to make a difference. They see the continual flipping of parties and politicians without actually seeing anything change. And that's a thing of the Republican Party. That's something that the Republican Party can take on itself to try to create solutions that young people can see better in their own daily lives, in their own neighborhoods, in their own communities. But more than that, it's also an ability of us to show young people what the Republican Party has been doing.
Being college Republicans?
Us being the Republican Party.
Okay.
Showing young people what the Republican Party is able to do, what it has been doing, helping transmit that rhetoric.
Are we doing on a letter grade of A through F? How good is the Republican Party in terms of engaging and showing young people those opportunities, in your opinion?
C. We've been getting better.
C.
Yes.
Okay. That's improvement.
They've been getting better at it, but I think there's so much room to grow. There are so many more things Republican Party apparatuses at the local, through the state level, through the national level, can be doing, I think, in my opinion, to help engage young people better. I know that it took us a while, but we were actually just this year able to get a working relationship set in stone with the Ohio Republican Party. That was a huge milestone for us, and we're really thankful to Alex Trantafilo for being able to work with us on getting that working relationship established.
That didn't exist before. Sorry to kind of jump in, but I have to. That wasn't.
Yeah.
That wasn't actively occurring in the past.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, it's a little concerning to hear, but
yeah, it might have occurred at some point in previous years, but at some point in the past decade or so, there was a loss of translation between the OCRF and the GOP, whether it be the GOP State Federation or other organizations.
Okay,
and we were able to get that put back in stone. We were able to get something back into motion, and I think we're going to do great things with that. I think we're going to be able to make that happen. Another thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to actively put our chapters in communication with their county Republican parties, because those
relationships don't exist currently, or I don't know that they do. We're Ohio Wesleyan in Delaware, where I was chairman, and we did have a reach out. One of our commissioners, Jeff Benton, was a Wesleyan grad, and he made a big step over for a mock convention that they have every 4 years. Really a positive thing there, but I saw that that's a bridge that needs to be built at most universities.
Yeah, I think at a lot of universities we do have that bond. I know Miami University, for instance, they have a great
historically
relationship.
A really good politically active campus, though.
Yeah, they have
especially conservatively.
Yep, they have a great relationship with the Butler County Republican Party. I was president of the UD College Republicans for 2 years, ending just last month. And I'm on the executive committee for the Montgomery County Republican Party and the Central Committee. So I think we have a lot of really great examples of this in motion. We're just trying to apply it to our other chapters and make sure that they're tapped in as well to their local county party, because the benefit goes both ways. Not only can the college Republican members at those campuses learn what is happening at their county level from people who've lived in the county for a long time, especially, helpful for young people who may not be from the local area. And in addition to that, the county party leadership can learn what young people are asking for, what the college Republicans are seeing on their campus. The Republican Party can help out in the local area. They can help bring in volunteers. They can help bring in manpower to help the college Republicans. So that's a huge mutual beneficiary relationship, and we already have it going in Montgomery County, where I am. We have it going in Butler County. we're going to be working on getting it everywhere else.
What about the attitude, the temperature on campuses right now? I know in the last cycle, especially during the Biden years, a lot of conservatives felt hopeless. People who thought they were liberal are realizing now that they're not liberals, that they actually are conservatives in some cases, but they were told differently and that it was defined differently. What is going out there today that when a kid goes to college, a parent needs to be focused on because their kids are being exposed to what?
I think a big part of it is the internet. Right now, the internet is just dominating everything.
Okay.
Young people, they don't watch cable news. I know for a fact I don't watch cable news. It's all the internet. It's all social media. That is what is driving not only ideology, but also just everyday attitudes about just about any cultural or social substance you can imagine. And I think a lot of the older folks don't necessarily understand how quickly dynamics on social media evolve and change over time. But young people are tapping into these things every day. Social attitudes can flip on a dime.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the main ways that influences politics of young people.
Is social media becoming more accurate, less accurate in terms of the way that it gets into a person's head? Tell me about that, because are we improving or are we devolving in terms of what's happening in the social media sphere?
I think we are doing both in two different ways.
Okay.
We're improving in the sense that social media is becoming more free. Social media is becoming more free for people to be able to express conservative opinions. Elon Musk taking over Twitter was a great thing for freedom of speech, and it allowed young people to engage in views or find views that may have been outside of the left-wing media defined Overton window that existed for a long time. Mm-hmm. That helped, I think, with electing Trump in 2024 and with the polling numbers that we saw showing young people becoming more conservative than at any point. On the flip side of that, you also have sort of the unintended side effect of it, which is that the media content that's going on social media right now is becoming more cheap. And in many ways, social influencing, political influence has become a business.
Okay.
People are increasingly, I feel like on Twitter especially, resorting to cheap content that's designed to influence people, and it's not done in good faith.
Yeah, lots of clickbait, lots of stuff that's really problematic, I would say.
Yeah, and it's even worse for the older folks, I feel like. Young people, I think, in many ways can tell, at least with some of this content, what is and isn't being done in good faith, what is and isn't just a business model being applied. Okay. With the older folks, it's even worse. You look at your Facebook feed, you see all these AI images being put out there without any context to say that this is just an AI image, so people will believe it.
Right.
So there's a lot of manipulation going on. There's a lot of that's intrinsically looped into the algorithm. And so it's concerning to me, and I think to a lot of young people who see this stuff and are wondering, how is this influencing our generation? How is this impacting what people are believing? And is that going to be a good thing? I doubt it.
Along that line, if you had to tell, our goal is to get this pushed out. Mm-hmm. And if you had to tell a grandparent or a parent of a child who is in, and I want to say we have to start in middle school now, because they're socially active on social media, but middle schoolers, high schoolers, college kids, what should parents be telling their kids or monitoring their kids or advising their kids right now as it relates to what they're doing with their phones and their tablets?
They should be telling this as early as elementary school, actually, because increasingly young people, kids, are going onto the internet super early. Me personally, I wasn't led onto the internet until I was in third grade. I would leave that up to other parents to decide for their kids what is or isn't appropriate, internet access, whether or not their kids should be on the internet at what age. But I think that they need to be telling kids as early as elementary school, do not believe everything you see on the internet. Do not believe everything you hear on the internet. And I think that people are eventually because of this new trend in the internet, with how the internet is increasingly composed of content that's, economic, that's business algorithm based,
Right.
and not necessarily informative, that people are going to start realizing that they can't believe everything they see on the internet.
I say it knows you better than you may know yourself many times when it's coming at you.
It's kind of scary.
It's more than kind of scary. It should be incredibly alarming, but it's a hard habit to break for a lot of people. That's the tricky part. Last word on college Republicans, and we need to move over to Turning Point and what you're doing there.
Sure.
In terms of how people can help the college Republican movement, anything else that we need to ask folks? I mean, it sounds like we need local engagement of county parties, local engagement of clubs. We need, state party is stepping up and recognizing and working with you all. What else would be out there that we might be missing that we ought to be thinking about?
That's a good question. I think it's just all of it. I think all of it needs to be boosted even more significantly than it already is. But there's another thing that I think a lot of people forget, and it's that young people want something out of the Republican Party that's different than what the Republican Party has been able to provide for the past 20 years. They want thinking and rhetoric and ideas that align with what they're looking for in their lives, in society, in America. Young people have specific concerns, and those concerns aren't necessarily about taxes. They're not about, young people, I notice, for none of the young college Republicans I work with, tax cuts are none of their top issue.
So they like paying taxes, or it's just not?
They don't like paying taxes, but also it's important to understand that these young people, for them, that's not the number one impact in their lives, because most of them aren't homeowners yet.
Okay.
The number one issue in their lives right now is just being able to buy a home in general. It's the prices of the things that they buy every day. And it's also the culture war. I think the culture war is something that young people are exposed to so much more viscerally than other people in society, because everybody else, they're sheltered in their communities. They're sheltered in, communities, especially here in Ohio, that tend to be very Republican. But for young people like us, we have to go out into our college campuses, or for other young professionals, they have to go out into a major city like Columbus or Cincinnati, and they have to experience what the left-wing culture is doing in their communities, with crime, with violence, with deviancy that's becoming a major hamperment on their ability to potentially raise children, or live in a safe neighborhood that they can feel comfortable living in.
So I'm hearing young people. Housing, one issue. Our last episode was all on about housing. It was completely about housing. We'll do more episodes on housing because we're a real estate, company is what we do for our day living.
Yep.
And we recognize that's a critical issue. But the culture war, talking about that. I mean, we've been experiencing that for quite some time. I know that we have been knee deep in it. I think that's an issue. But the hopelessness that comes through that is how do we extract the hope? Because I always say elections are not about the past. Elections are about the future.
Yep.
And if we talk to the ability to buy a home, if we get that right, if we can calm down the culture war, what other things can we do to get you to come out with your friends and your peer group to pull levers? Whether it can be a Republican or a Democrat lever, preferably Republican, I have to say, but we want people engaged in governing your country, because this is your country.
Yep, it's about reaching out to young people.
Okay.
And one thing I didn't mention on sort of the ideas with the Republican Party is immigration. Immigration is the top issue among young people right now, because they're seeing, the number one concern, I think, among young professionals who are entering the workforce right now is that they're concerned about immigration. They're concerned about whether or not they'll have to compete with foreign labor for jobs. The job market is incredibly competitive right now. And so that's something that I feel like the Republican Party often fails to address.
We are not talking about that at a top line. We're not, immigration, obviously we have the culture fight going on with immigration, and the way that Trump is rounding up what are supposed to be mainly the criminals and the drug dealers that are out here, and terrorists that have come in here. But you're talking about jobs. You're talking
Yep.
about opportunity, somewhat different than what that narrative is playing out on the streets of Los Angeles.
Make no mistake, illegal immigration is a huge issue in this country, and I'm glad that the Trump administration is going all in on it. But I think we can take it a step further and talk about legal immigration too, and talk about how our economy and our workforce, our market, is incredibly competitive, and we should be prioritizing the students and young people who we have in our own state of Ohio. That's something that I feel like would resonate so much with young people in the state. I know it's resonated with me for a long time, and that's something that the Republican Party can do, not only to bring in young people, but to also capitalize on the working class element that they've sort of been tapping into for some time, ever since Trump came into the scene.
Should there be quotas and set-asides for college graduates that come out of American universities for these positions? Is that a good way to handle it, do you think?
I think at the very least, we need to get rid of any programs that are happening right now that prioritize foreign students or foreign workers over American students.
Okay.
And that would be the H-1B visa and like-minded programs.
What about the situation? I mean, there's there's one candidate running for a high office right now that says that we are not producing the people who are qualified to take some of these jobs. How do we address that question in terms of is it our university's curriculum is not on par? Perhaps the preparatory curriculum is not on par. Could be all the above. What is that an issue, and do we need to have a better education flow? Or maybe is that not an issue and we simply need to be giving people these jobs that are Americans?
They are right, but we can always be producing higher level quality talent. We can always be improving our education system. We can always be doing these things. But at the end of the day, the number one thing that we can do to help provide experience and training for our young people right here at home in America is to give them that job experience, is to help them go into the economy, to help them get better paying jobs that they're going to want to work. And they always talk about how these are jobs in many cases that Americans don't want to work. Well, that's not true. I believe it was in Omaha just recently, where the Trump administration, ICE did a raid on a food packing facility, and they were worried about being able to rehire folks. They had a whole line down the block of people filing out applications, homegrown young people who were filing out applications to work at this facility. Okay. So I think that's the blueprint. I think that we should be prioritizing this. And I would just encourage anyone who believes otherwise to ask a young person, especially a young person right here in Ohio or in the Midwest, how easy they think the job market is right now. They're all going to say it's incredibly difficult. Young people I know on my campus or back anywhere really, they're talking about how hard it is to get an interview beyond the second stage. They're talking about how hard it is to actually get an acceptance letter for a job that they, even jobs that are below their quality.
I got to jump in because we're told that we have an amazingly low unemployment rate and that there's a job for everyone. Are we being told wrong?
I think that we're being told a story that's not entirely accurate.
Okay.
Sure, we have people who are working jobs, young people who are working jobs, but what types of jobs are they working? Are they working at Tropical Smoothie Cafe? Are they working at their local, their local restaurant? Or are they working at a manufacturing job, at a trade that they can excel in and actually make large amounts of money in doing, enough money for them to be able to rent or buy a home or raise children?
Right.
That's not what they're getting. And so the unemployment rate may be low, but it's not telling the full story. It's that young people are not making enough money to be fully self-sufficient in the way that their parents and grandparents were able to be.
Okay. So let's switch over to your role with Turning Point Action. 2 minutes. What is Turning Point Action and how did you get there?
So Turning Point Action is a 501c4 electoral group. It was founded by Charlie Kirk back a while ago. And it's intended to be the electoral wing of Turning Point USA. Turning Point USA was established back in around 2013 as the 501c3 group that outreaches to young people for the conservative cause. It's intended to compete with the left-wing academia apparatus at universities. It's intended to be that means of bringing young people that conservative worldview, a worldview about freedom, about free markets, and about liberty. And Turning Point Action was intended to be the electoral wing of that. And so we're a 501c4. What we do is we go out onto the streets, into the field every day, and we help make sure that people are getting out and voting, and specifically that conservatives are getting out and voting. And that's super important, right? We see, especially in non-presidential years when Trump isn't on the ballot, that Republicans don't necessarily get out and vote that much.
Right.
I think a big part of that is because Republicans are just a little more normal. We aren't paying attention to what in every election is, every school board election, every municipal election. The Democrats are paying attention to that stuff. But that's going to be a real issue. When Trump isn't on the ballot, we're not getting out and voting. And so, as I said previously, it doesn't really matter who's in the White House if all your local elected officials are Democrats, if all your local office holders are Democrats. That's a major issue, and we're trying to solve that every day. Last year, we started with our Super Chase program across the state of Ohio. We were able to turn out over 13,000 conservative Republican voters who wouldn't have otherwise voted, and that made the difference at a lot of key elections, specifically local elections across the state of Ohio. So we're going to...
That's the equivalent of a small city.
Yes.
Of people. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of people to come out and vote.
Yep.
Did you swing any elections, do you feel, particularly in some of these smaller communities with your efforts?
I think we did. I think we came really close to flipping a lot more. And I think that we could just continue building off of that. We could start becoming a real machine. We could start completely changing the game in terms of outreach and conservative turnout. A lot of people, they talk about persuasion. They talk about, the old school method of doing it, about persuading voters who are independents. But the real name of the game, I think, is in conservative turnout. And especially when conservatives aren't getting out to vote, especially in off-year election cycles and midterm election cycles. This is why, even though the political framework of 2022 was very Republican and conservative, is very anti-Biden, conservatives still were not able to produce the red wave that they thought they were going to do.
Right.
And that's because of how conservatives weren't getting out and voting, because there wasn't enough infrastructure, there wasn't enough tools and manpower necessary to get those folks out to vote. The Democrats, they have a massive Arabella machine that includes a massive data bank. They have tons of money, and they're able to push that money out into TV ads nonstop. They have the money because they're the party of the billionaire and millionaire class now in America. The Republicans, we don't have all that money because, again, we're the working class party now, but what we do have is the people. A majority of counties in the state of Ohio do not have functioning Democratic Party apparatuses in the county level.
Okay.
Republicans,
I agree with that.
Republicans, we do in almost all 88 counties.
Yes.
And that is our advantage, that we have so much manpower ready to go. We still have that energy that was first started way back when the Tea Party was going on. And we're continuing that through Trump and through the MAGA movement. We have an enthusiastic base of supporters who love what the Trump administration is doing. They love what we stand for. They love this movement, and they're ready to go out and fight for their communities. They're ready to go out and talk to their neighbors because they love their communities, because they love their neighbors, and they want to ensure that their neighbors are protected, and that their communities are protected, and that their children are protected. That's what we're tapping into.
Do you feel that in terms of voter turnout, we have midterms coming up. Mm-hmm. Midterms are critical. And I'm spending a tremendous amount of time lately, and in fact, between now and the next 4 months, I'm going to be on a major project to work on midterm voter, particularly with some groups that are critical. What is happening in this midterm as you foresee it right now? I see a lot of people that have become complacent. I think that folks have said, you know what, this is kind of fun to watch. Let's sit back and enjoy the show because we have won. I know that we're far from that. I think that we are possibly being lulled into a sleep trap that could put us in dire jeopardy of continuing what we need to move forward. Do you see that, or do you think that this is just a question of trying to keep the push on? The momentum hasn't slowed down whatsoever. What's your sensation in terms of where we are politically today in the market?
My baseline, my mantra is always just to never be complacent, never to underestimate the left, never to underestimate the people who oppose us, and always to overestimate our ability to resonate with people. And that's why we go out every single day and make sure that folks are getting engaged, making sure that folks are getting signed up with our programs so that we can let them know, hey, when the time comes, this is where we're going to be. We're going to go out and door knock. This is how we can get equipped with our app. This is how we can get folks to door knock and get their neighbors, friends, and family out to vote. We believe that we have the ability to do that, and that's why we go out every single day and make sure that happens. I don't know what's going to happen in the midterms next year. I'm not a polling expert. I'm not someone who pays attention to that stuff. There's a lot of people who do. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. But I've learned from just the level of unpredictability of politics for the past 4 years that I've been in the game that there's not really anything you can predict. The only thing that is not confidently tellable about politics is that it's predictable, because it's certainly not predictable.
Okay, here's a fun question. What are you going to be when you grow up?
I have no idea. I'm keeping my lane.
I have some ideas, but I think you folks have some ideas. But we may not be right.
Yeah, I'm keeping my lanes open. I'm just focused on what I'm doing now, which is helping make this state a better place. I came from Chicago, the suburb right outside of Chicago, and I grew up and learned firsthand what local governments can do if it's in the wrong hands. When COVID struck my school and they shut us out of school for 2 years, and because of the crime that was coming out of Chicago, I learned firsthand what Democratic and left-wing leadership does to a community. It destroys a community. And that's why I came here. That's why I got away from Illinois. And I think I'm going to keep fighting for this state.
Nice. Well, Gabe, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Anything else that we need to cover that we may not have talked about real quick before we sign off?
Nope.
Okay, folks, you're looking at the future right here with Gabe. One thing that I did mention, Gabe did the Pledge of Allegiance at the Republican National Convention. It was a proud moment for me because I knew Gabe, and I didn't even know he was coming out to do it. So that was a pretty big honor.
Surprise.
It's a special moment for me, but I know even more so a special moment for you and your family. We're in good hands as it relates to our young people. The call I'm putting out there, and I am organizing to make sure that our young people are engaged, our young people are supported. We cannot turn away from the need to make sure that they have a future and that they feel that they're a part of this future. And housing is a big problem. Families, being able to support a family is a big problem. Jobs, I mean, we've touched on a lot of points here. Stay tuned, stay with us. You're going to learn more about these issues individually. You're going to learn more about the larger economic elements and how all this fits together, and why the conservative approach, why the Republican conservative approach is the right way for the United States of America. And when the United States of America leads, the world follows, and the world is a safe place. And you can see right now, when we misstep off of that, or when we fall asleep at the wheel for 4 years like we just did, chaos erupts, and now we have to get it back, and we are. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.
The views and opinions expressed on The Shawn Parker Show are for informational purposes only and should not be taken as financial, legal, or investment advice. Shawn Parker, The Shawn Parker Show, Parker Realty Associates, and their employees are not financial advisors, attorneys, or certified professionals, with an exception of licensed real estate professionals. Please consult with a qualified advisor or professional before making any financial, legal, or investment decisions.